it just me, or does this jumper bring you back to your emo days? It really does remind me of when, I had these platform shoes that were just about as unstable as my mental health at the time. Let's just give this a wee try, a wee throwback to 2K9. Oh my, no, that was never a look. That is frightening. P.S. A massive thank you to the commenter who said that if Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson had a baby, it would be me. Hey there guys, my name is Megan if we're new here, and if not, welcome back for another spooky episode of Killer Weekend, where each week we'll discuss a true crime case and you guys can feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments box below. I'm aware I look like a massive chessboard. If you like all things true crime, supernatural, UFO, conspiracy theory, and all that good stuff in between, then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you every weekend with our True Crime Killer Weekend, and on and off every couple of Wednesdays with our Weirdo Wednesdays, where we'll discuss something spooky I've heard. I will also be doing viewer write-in episodes since the Reddit episode was so popular with you guys. So if you have a spooky story, a creepy story, if you know someone who has a creepy story, then please send those in to megankillerweekend@gmail.com. That's megankillerweekend@gmail.com. If you would like to further support this wee channel o' mine, then please feel free to visit www.patreon.com/Megan True Crime. I will leave a small disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. It does involve details of violent crime, self-harm, and a false accusation of sexual assault. If that's a trigger point for you, then please feel free to turn away now. Hey my wee gremlins, how are you? What have you been up to today? What's been happening in your hometown? Anything exciting? Here in Scotland, 1 week we have sunshine, 1 week we have snow. It's just lovely. Our snacks today vary in style. We have the gorgeous cherry cola, the one and only. Also, everyone seemed to think it was really strange last time I was drinking this that our cans are purple. But yes, our cherry cola cans are purple for everyone who was interested. Not that many of you, I'm sure. But the next sweet we have comes from every grandma's handbag. It's a mint humbug. And they kind of look like little cockroaches. I'll see if you can. It's not going to focus. Okay, well done. But they are very nice, and yes, I am a 60-year-old woman trapped in a 30-year-old woman's body. Also, my wee lovelies, if I sniff my way through this entire episode, don't worry, I've not got the Peruvian flu. I simply am recovering from a sinus infection. I know, I'm sick all year round. If you know me and you watch this channel, you will know I love shoving anything into my mouth. Before you think it, get your mind out of the gutter. I'm talking about food, which is why I'm so excited to welcome you to this week's sponsor. It's HelloFresh. Spring has officially sprung, and hot and healthy girl summer is just around the corner. So why not kickstart the season in the right way with an array of veggie, pescatarian and fit and wholesome meals that will leave you feeling $1,000,000 by the time bikini and swimming trunk season arrives. Also, as an almost bride, fingers crossed, all being well, nothing goes wrong, I have been doing nothing but crunching numbers, and I was shocked about the amount of money and food I was wasting by shopping at my local supermarket. But with HelloFresh, all of your meals come with pre-portioned ingredients, so you literally only have exactly what you need. I've actually even turned my whole family into HelloFresh fans. My older sister, she has 2 little ones under the age of 2, and she's running her household. So the quick and easy meal options mean that she gets maximum flavour, but minimum cleanup and prep time. All my mums out there, you'll thank me later. My fiance and I try and recycle and try to keep this world as green as possible, and I love the fact that HelloFresh are the same. As the first carbon neutral meal kit company, HelloFresh do their best to ensure that nearly all of the packaging you receive in your order is recyclable. Mealtimes don't need to be a snooze anymore. You can bring flavours from all over the world right to your very own kitchen table. I mean, guys, look at these enchiladas that me and my fiance made. Yum. But guys, don't just take my word for it. Try HelloFresh today. Go to hellofresh.com, use code Megan16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. That's hellofresh.com using code Megan16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. Now on to this week's episode, and this one's actually for all my mums, dads and guardians out there. I'm sure we all have aspirations of what we would love our children to achieve. Me being only an auntie, I have to admit, I look at my little niece and nephew and wonder who they'll be. I like to buy them some toddler guitars and sing them my favourite songs in the hopes that one of them will be the next superstar. Prob's not gonna happen though, because my sister sings like a strangled cat. Maybe as a parent you would like to teach your children a second language, or spend a fortune on the best tutors money can buy, all to ensure your little darlings have the greatest start in life. But how much is too much when we're talking about pushing our children to succeed? And when does parental pressure become a pressure cooker? Tonight, everyone, we'll discuss the baffling case of the Pan family murders. The evening of November 8th, 2010 started off like any other for 24-year-old Jennifer Pan. After having dinner with her mother and her father, Jennifer's mum, Bic Pan, got dressed and left to go line dancing with her friend and a cousin. At around the same time, Jennifer invited over her longtime friend Adrienne to watch Gossip Girl in their downstairs basement TV room. Remember Gossip Girl? Which one were you? Were you a Chuck Bass? Were you a Dan Humphrey? Were you a Nate Archibald? I was clearly a Chuck because I love toxic men. Han Pan, Jennifer's father, went to his bed at around 9 p.m. because he had an early start the next day. Her mother arrived back from line dancing and her feet were killing her. So she sat in front of the TV with her tootsies in a foot spa wearing her satin Winnie the Pooh pajamas. And I just love her, she's just a vibe. Once Adrienne had left, Jennifer went up to her bedroom and watched an episode of John and Kate Plus 8. And if you ever watched that programme, you deserve a gold medal because Kate was an insufferable woman. Imagine, can I talk to the manager as a person? That was her. At 10:02, Jennifer went downstairs to kiss her mum goodnight and to get a glass of water for bed. And at 10:13 p.m. that night, 2 intruders entered the Pan family home. Having heard a disruption coming from downstairs and her mother screaming, Jennifer cowered in her bedroom until she heard footsteps, heavy footsteps, coming up the stairs, coming for her. She was confronted by a stranger in her hallway who then bound her arms and her hands behind her back to the banister of the stairs. The young woman sobbed as this intruder screamed in her face asking for money. But because of a local burglary that had recently happened, the Pans didn't keep much cash on their property. Jennifer then instructs the 2 assailants that cash is hidden in different rooms around the home, one of them being Jennifer's own bedroom. She had $2,400 that she had saved from being a piano teacher. Her mother had just over $1,000 hidden away in their master bedroom. Despite them handing over this large amount of money, that wasn't enough. The men weren't satisfied, so they started screaming at Han and Bic, who were now being held at gunpoint in the family's basement, for more cash. Han said that the only cash that was left was $60 that was in his wallet upstairs. Obviously, the intruders didn't like the sound of that because they then started pistol whipping Han Pan. Meanwhile, Beck Pan was questioning her husband in her native language as to how these intruders managed to get inside their locked house. And her final words were her pleading with them to not harm her daughter. And with that mother's final plea, she was then shot 3 times at close range in the back of the head. Han Pan, Jennifer's beloved father, was then shot himself in the face and in the shoulder. Upstairs, Jennifer Pan was still helplessly tied to the banister. She could hear the pops of the gun downstairs, and she was certain her family were no longer alive, and that the killers were probably coming for her next. But, much to her surprise, the next noise she hears is the front door slamming shut and a car driving away. The assailants were gone. At 11:20 p.m, almost an hour after the men had entered the Pan home, Jennifer was able to wriggle out of her restraints enough so that she could grab her flip phone from her side pocket. She did so and was able to call 911, and we have that recording for you here.
911, Drew.
Help me, please. I need help.
Where are you, ma'am?
238 Helen Avenue. I think we just know. I don't know where my parents are.
Ma'am, calm down. What's going on?
Some people broke into our house and they just showed all his money.
Okay,
and I could hear my parents yelling downstairs.
Okay,
Please send help.
ma'am, where are you? 238 what?
Avenue.
238 Avenue Road.
Yes.
Can you spell the street name for me, please?
Dad? Just I'm calling her.
Ma'am. Hello.
I'm okay. I'm alright.
Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, I need to know your address. Avenue Road. Can you please spell it for me?
238 Helen Avenue. My dad just went outside screaming.
Ma'am, can you spell the street address for me, please?
Helen. Someone broke in and I heard shots like pops. I don't know what's happening. I'm tied upstairs. And I think my dad went outside and he's screaming.
Okay, you're upstairs? You think someone's still in the house?
I heard them leave. I don't know if they're still around.
Okay, are you safe? Can you lock your door? Are you upstairs?
I can't. I'm tied. My hands are tied.
You're tied?
I had my cell phone in my pocket.
Someone invaded your home, ma'am?
Yes, and
you
I
heard gunshots?
They had guns, and they were holding me at gunpoint. Please, hurry.
Okay, do you hear your mom anywhere downstairs? Do you think your mom's outside too?
What? Sorry?
Do you think your mom is downstairs too still, or
I don't hear her anymore.
Okay, just take a deep breath, okay? Do you know that if they know your parents, anything like that, with any relation to them? Do they call them there? They just came and tied you up and
they came in and they were like, where's all your money? Where's your money? Where's your wallet? And they
were asking you for money?
Yeah, could you call my uncle and my aunt, please?
Okay.
They live nearby.
Don't worry, okay? We have lots of help on the way, okay? What's your name?
My name is Jennifer.
Jennifer? Okay, Jennifer, you're doing a great job, okay?
I think I hear them.
You hear them? Okay, just stay on the phone with me till you see them, okay? Jennifer? Jennifer?
Yeah?
You're still on the phone, right? Okay. Do you see anyone there?
Yeah, I hear them. Hello? 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 I'm upstairs.
Okay, Jennifer, they're with you, okay?
I don't know where my mom is.
Jennifer?
Yes?
They're with you, right?
I don't see them yet. I hear them.
Okay, you want to stay on the phone with me till you see them? They're there, okay? Jennifer, I'm going to hang up, okay?
Okay.
Okay, take care, okay?
Yeah.
Jennifer Pan was born on the 17th of June 1986. She was the only daughter to her Vietnamese parents, Han and Bic Pan. Pretty soon, 3 years later, she was joined by her brother Felix. The family were complete. But things hadn't always been so rosy for the Pan family. In 1979, Han and Beck had actually fled from Vietnam, fearing for their safety, and escaped to Canada. They worked hard to ensure a better life for themselves, with Han working as a tool and die maker, and alongside her husband, Beck worked making car parts. Both of them were employed by auto parts manufacturer Magna International, and they literally scrimped and saved every single penny that they could, and it worked out because in 2004 they were able to buy their dream home in a small suburb within Markham, Ontario. Alongside their gorgeous new home, they were also able to purchase 2 luxury cars, a brand new Mercedes-Benz and a Lexus ES300. They were a far cry from their dingy apartment that they first had when they moved to Canada. They did everything they could to ensure their children would have a brighter future. From the age of 4, Han and Beck enrolled Jennifer in not only piano lessons, but figure skating lessons, and she excelled in both. She was naturally a very musical child and won several trophies and awards for her piano playing. Sadly, though, her figure skating career would be short-lived, and her parents' aspirations for Jennifer to attend the 2010 Winter Olympics turned into nothing but a fantasy due to a torn ligament in Jennifer's leg. It was in her early teens that Jennifer's friends slowly started to see a change in her demeanour. She was once this straight-A student, and all of a sudden she was coasting on a B-grade average, which was something the Pans would not accept. As a child, Jennifer experienced something that many children do, the trend of tiger parenting. Often rumoured to be very prominent within the Asian community, and I'm not sure if that's true. If you have experienced something like this within your community, do let us know. There was several children in my school who weren't Asian and their parents were very, very pushy. And with tiger parenting is when the parents push the child to prioritise anything to do with academics, foregoing the social aspects of being a teenager, such as parties, having friends, sleepovers. Jennifer's close friends at Mary Ward Catholic Secondary School said that Jennifer felt trapped by her parents' rigorous schedule. She was forbidden to date, she was forbidden to go to high school dances, and God help her if she asked to attend a friend's sleepover, because that was a strict no-no. The young teen tried her absolute hardest, but even when she was a straight-A student, an accomplished piano player, this wasn't enough for her to make her junior high valedictorian status, and for that, she started to think to herself, what's the point? It seemed Jennifer had turned overnight from this popular, chatty girl with the high-pitched laugh to a little girl who was withdrawn and full of self-loathing and anxiety. She told her friends that she could never live up to the child protege standard that is very common with Asian stereotypes. Jennifer's family would never accept mediocre from anyone, let alone their own daughter. From a young age, Han Pan, Jennifer's father, had an idea of where he would like his children to end up in life. Well, he had more than an idea. He had set careers set out for them. For years, he carefully monitored his children's skills and decided that Felix Pan would become a mechanical engineer and that his daughter Jennifer would strive for a career in pharmacy. But underneath all the awards and extracurricular activities, Jennifer Pan was wearing a disguise, a happy mask, as her friends would call it. She started her path of dishonesty off small, simply lying to her parents about how she was doing in school. But when they started asking for concrete proof of her grades, she then began forging report cards to make those B's look like straight A's. But sadly, that wasn't all Jennifer was hiding. In her early teens, she began self-harming, making small horizontal incisions on her forearms, something neither of her parents were aware of. The Pans were never really an emotionally nurturing family. Han found social interactions frivolous and thought that children didn't need affection to thrive, only constant supervision and structure. According to family friends, Big Pan was a little bit softer than her husband and had more of a kind, warm nature. She would always do without if it meant that her children had the best of everything. Even though she would stand by her husband and his final choices, Beck was said to not really always agree with his parenting styles, and she was more of an unwilling accomplice, according to friends. As she grew older, Jennifer felt more and more imprisoned in her home life. But in 2003, when an opportunity arose for members of the school band to attend a trip to Europe, Jennifer begged her family to go. To her surprise, they actually relented and let her go because they felt like it would look good on college applications. But one evening on the vacation, disaster struck. You see, Jennifer and her other bandmates were performing in a bar, which was very smoky. Everyone was lighting up, but Jennifer has severe asthma, so she starts coughing, she can't breathe, she then starts panicking, only making her asthma attack worse when she is led outside to safety by another student, Daniel Wong. Daniel, who was a year older than Jennifer, had spoken to her previously, but this time was a little different. He just had a way of calming her down and making all of her fears and anxiety melt away. And whether it was his, smooth talking or the lack of oxygen to her brain, or Jen fell in love. Let's not forget though, Jennifer's strict parents who had forbidden her from dating anyone until after she'd graduated college. And no matter how nice Daniel appeared, he wasn't the ideal candidate. During his senior year, Daniel was actually transferred to a school of the arts because he was unable to keep up with the academic workload at his previous school. Not only this, he'd been busted weeks before with £5 pound of marijuana in his car. Daniel, who was known as a small-time drug dealer in the area, was no match for our overachiever Jennifer, and the Pans banned her from ever speaking to him again. Of course, teens being teens, Jennifer didn't listen and the love affair ensued. However, when her senior year arrived, it appeared that Jennifer's hopes at a college education were soon to be dashed. In her senior year, Jennifer had actually failed calculus, which meant that she would no longer be graduating with her classmates. And for that reason, her conditional offer from Ryerson University was pulled. But what could she do? She wasn't going to tell her expectant parents that she was a failure. So Jennifer did what the little pathological liar did best. She told a big fat fib. She stated to her family that she was not only going to Ryerson University, but she had been offered a prestigious $3,000 award for a scholarship, even though she wasn't even going to graduate high school. She would purchase used school books and pretend that they were hers. She would also ask her parents if she could stay at her friend Topaz's apartment, which was very close to the university, instead of having to make the 30-minute commute every morning and every evening. To her surprise, they actually were quite chill and agreed that she could stay at her friend Topaz's apartment 3 nights out of the week, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays. But Jennifer wasn't staying with her friend, ladies and gentlemen. Nope. She was staying at her boyfriend's dorm room in York University. She was living in sin with Daniel Wong. Instead of attending lectures, the fake freshman was spending her days in cafes, sipping lattes, in the library, reading up on pharmacy, just in case her father quizzed her, and she even got a part-time job as a server in East End Mario's, a local restaurant. To make some extra cash on the side, Jennifer would also offer piano lessons. Meanwhile, her mother and father are bragging to all their friends about their daughter's academic achievement. In 2006, when Jennifer's time at Ryerson was due to come to an end, her father questioned her on what her next steps were, and she dishonestly told him that she had been accepted for a transfer to University of Toronto, where she would further her studies in pharmacy. Han and wife Beck could not have been more proud. All of their sacrifices that they had made had eventually paid off. Their son Felix was studying at McMaster University in Hamilton, studying mechanical engineering, and here was their daughter, their pride and joy, who was soon to be taking up a career in medicine. Or so they thought. Jennifer managed to keep this charade up until 2008, when her graduation from University of Toronto came around. Her parents obviously wanted to go and celebrate her graduation with her, but Jennifer came up with a clever way out of that. She had explained that there had been a large number of students graduating that year, and for that reason they had only offered them one ticket for a family member at graduation. She, being the loving daughter, didn't want any of her parents to feel left out, so she offered her ticket to a friend, and they bought that for some time. Han Pan started to have his own suspicions as to what was really going on in his eldest daughter's life. Jennifer had claimed to have gotten a job at a sick children's hospital after graduation, but her family had never seen a uniform or a key pass, which is very strange, as her mother did all of her washing. Something was clearly up, and her family could sense this. So one day, as a surprise, her father said that he and his wife were driving Jennifer to work and would drop her off at the hospital doors. The whole car ride, Jennifer was said to be fidgeting, nervous, and wouldn't really speak to her parents, and the minute they arrived at the front door of the hospital, she bolted from the car and ran straight in for A&E. Jennifer hid in the emergency room for over 3 hours, waiting for her mother and father to go back home. So they gave up and headed back to the house. But when Jennifer didn't arrive home later that evening, they were panicked and contacted her close friend and ex-roommate, Topaz. But Topaz, who was awoken from her sleep, was very confused. She had no idea what the family were talking about. Jennifer had never lived with her, and she was never a college student at Ryerson University. Since her fictional graduation in 2008, Jennifer had actually been working behind the bar at Boston Pizzeria, and she eventually went home and came clean to her parents. She told her mum and dad that her whole life since 8th grade had been a complete lie, and she wasn't the overachiever that they had prayed for. Their reactions varied. Beck was said to be sobbing in between questions for her daughter, whereas Han was more angry and stated that he wanted his daughter out of the house. After some time to reflect and a lot of pleading on Beck's part, Han agreed to allow Jennifer to stay under their roof, with strict instructions, of course. The 22-year-old was to cut all contact with Daniel. She wasn't allowed a cell phone. She wasn't allowed access to her laptop unless that was supervised by her parents. And she wasn't allowed to socialise outside the house with friends. The only time Jennifer was actually allowed to leave the Pan home was to teach piano to her clients. And on the odd occasion that her mother and father wouldn't drive her to and from those lessons, her father installed a GPS tracker into her car so he could watch her every move. Of course, when I do it, I'm being a psycho fiance. When he does it, he's being a good father. Just a joke for all the sensitive Sallys out there, I have never put a tracking device on my partner's car. that he's aware of. During this time, Jennifer was said to have felt like a prisoner in her own home. And to make matters worse, her secret lover Daniel was beginning to lose interest in her. In 2009, Daniel told Jennifer that he had met another woman named Christine and that he was falling for her, much to Jennifer's disgust. In a twisted bid to win back her estranged boyfriend, Jennifer came up with a horrific tale of home invasion. She claimed that one evening, while she was chilling at home, a man dressed as a police officer had rang the doorbell, and when she answered, he and 4 other strangers had stormed into her family's hallway and then proceeded to sexually assault her one at a time. Not only this, she told Daniel that she had recently been receiving threatening notes, saying that if she didn't stop seeing him, something bad would happen to her and her family. Jennifer said that she was convinced that these threats and the attack were orchestrated by Christine, Daniel's new girlfriend, to keep her away from her ex. And I'm sorry, Jennifer, I don't think anyone actually cares about a man enough to go to that much trouble. It's since been proven that the whole claim that Jennifer made about the intruders and the sexual assault were completely fabricated. One night, in an attempt to seduce Daniel in his family home, Jennifer snuck out of her bedroom, leaving pillows under her blankets to make it look like she was fast asleep. But she'd forgotten that she'd used her mother's wallet earlier that day and still had it in her car. When her mother went into her daughter's bedroom to find her missing wallet, she saw that it wasn't her baby girl lying in the bed, but a bunch of cushions. And yet again, Jennifer had betrayed her family's trust. Because of this recent breach, Jennifer's cell phone was taken away from her and was regularly checked by her father, Han. It was said that they could literally be sitting at the dinner table and he would just grab the phone off her and start scrolling through her messages. And I'm not saying, that's great either. I actually, fun fact, had an ex-boyfriend who used to do that. Whenever we'd just be sitting chilling, he'd grab my mobile and say random phone check and scroll through all my messages. Don't make bad life choices, ladies, okay? Jennifer Pan had never felt more stifled, and in the summer of 2010, she began looking for a way out. Jennifer arrived at a bubble tea cafe to meet with a man named Ricardo Duncan. He was a roommate of one of her childhood friends, Andrew Montemeyer. Having met in elementary school, Andrew had boasted an impressive criminal record and also claimed to have orchestrated several armed robberies. The plain, meek-looking Jennifer sat across from Ricardo, who was an alternative-looking dude with a eyeliner and black nail varnish. After some small talk, pretty soon the conversation turns to murder, with Jennifer expressing her disdain for both her mother and her father, even offering Ricardo $1,500 to take care of them, which he says that he is willing to do. He says he can stage a full home invasion, much like the one that Andrew had asked him to do several months ago before he lost his nerve. Yes, it turns out that Jennifer's childhood friend had also been thinking of hiring Ricardo to murder his father. Does anyone like their parents in Ontario? No? Okay. But much to Jennifer's disappointment, she never hears from Ricardo again, and it seems as if he's done a runner with her money. The whole thing was a scam. Of course, she's not going to give up that easy though. So she contacts on-again, off-again boyfriend Daniel Wong and asks if he knows any shady characters who would be up to the job, which from his days as a marijuana dealer, he does. Prior to the arrangement, Daniel provides Jennifer with a cell phone, one her parents won't know to look for. He also says to Jennifer that he hopes that she's not doing this just for him, as he wants her to murder her parents for her own reasons. She assures him she's just doing this for her own freedom, and the two continue on their murder for hire plot. Beck and Han Pan had a life insurance policy which equaled roughly about $1 million Canadian dollars, which meant that Felix and Jennifer would both split this and end up with roughly around $500,000 once the home was sold. From this amount that she was hoping to receive after her parents' death, Jennifer had promised $10,000 of that to 3 local thugs that Daniel had found for the job. The first one was Lenford Crawford, street name Homeboy. At least have like a cool one, like Dragon Tears or something, like Homeboy? Jesus Christ. The other 2 men involved were David Mulvagnum and a man named Eric Carty, who was already wanted in the murder of another man. It was arranged between the hitmen and Jennifer and Daniel that the crime would be set up like a home invasion, a robbery gone wrong, leaving poor Jennifer as a survivor and an orphan. At first, Daniel Wong seemed on board with the sick and twisted plan, but on the 2nd of November 2010, only 6 days before the murders, he had a change of heart and he confessed to Jennifer that he would not be standing by her side once the dust had settled. Jennifer questioned him on why, and that's when he let her know that he was in love with his other girlfriend, Christine, and he no longer saw Jennifer in that way. Of course, she was hurt by this new revelation, but she assured Daniel eventually that no, she was doing this for her own reasons and for her own future. Over the next few days, a date was finally agreed upon, and Jennifer prepared herself for the performance of a lifetime. On November 8th, 2010, Jennifer speaks briefly to David Mulvagnum on her cell phone. She then goes downstairs to kiss her mother goodnight and also unlocks the front door of their family home. She then enters her father's office upstairs and signals to the killers that she's ready to go by switching the lights on and off. At 10:13, the men enter the home and are captured on a neighbour's grainy CCTV footage. Now, it is said that you can't actually see how many men go into the house, but Eric Carty has always stated that he stayed in the car merely as a getaway driver and in no way was involved physically in the murders. The whole time, Jennifer could hear her mother's screams. She wasn't cowering in the corner of her bedroom like she had said. She was smiling, grinning behind her door, watching as her plans came into fruition. The intruders at no point harmed Jennifer. They only tied her to the banister at the last minute to give off the idea that she was this helpless victim. In the aftermath of the crime, Jennifer played the perfect grieving daughter, even organising her mother's funeral with her younger brother Felix by her side. Law enforcement started warning locals to get up-to-date security systems in place now, and everyone worried about who would be next. All the while, Jennifer Pan is harbouring a shameful secret, one that she and her parents will take to their graves. Well, they would, if it wasn't for the miracle that Han Pan had survived. Yes, despite being shot in the face, Han Pan had managed to escape to safety during Jennifer's 911 call. Having been placed into an induced coma, officers prayed that he would awake with the answers to this senseless crime and help them put the perpetrators behind bars. And that he did, because when he finally woke up, days after his wife's murder, he told investigators that something about that night just seemed off. The intruders were cruel and aggressive to Han and his wife Beck, but they were gentle and soft-spoken to Jennifer. He said that at no point during the altercation did Jennifer have her hands bound, and that they were probably tied to the banister after the shootings. Han even noticed at certain points in this ordeal that Jennifer was whispering back and forth with the two assailants. Unlike he and his wife, Jennifer never seemed frightened of these people, more like they were old friends. And when Beck pleaded with them not to harm Jennifer, one of them made the strange statement of, "We won't hurt her because she's a nice girl." It was because of these suspicions during the attack that Han didn't run to check that his daughter was safe when he realised that he had been shot. Instead, he ran out the front door to safety, despite Jennifer screaming for him. Even after the shooting, Jennifer's behaviour was downright bizarre. Her father, who had only woken up from his coma days before, was met with Jennifer in his hospital room demanding $1,200, which she claimed was for school because she was planning to enroll to a new college. Or was it, Jennifer, to pay off the gunmen who shot your father? To compare the two children, Felix Pan was devastated. He said he had lost someone who he considered his best friend, his mother. But Jennifer never shed a tear, and although she looked sullen, she looked more angry than upset. Probably because her father survived. The strange circumstances began adding up, and pretty soon Daniel's criminal connections came to light. So he and Lenford Crawford, aka Homeboy, had their phones tapped. They didn't really let much go. They would speak in code. The only time that law enforcement thinks they heard them talking specifically about the case is when they referred to Jennifer Pan as the girl. Jennifer yet again was brought in for questioning, and she was confronted with her father's statements. Also, her phone records, which proved that she had made several calls to David Mulvaginum and Daniel Wong on the day of the murder. In a bizarre twist, Jennifer started breaking down and said that yes, she had hired these gunmen, but not to kill her mum or her old man. No, she had hired them to kill her? Yes, she claimed that in a weird suicide attempt, she had hired the gunmen to come in and kill her instead, which no one was buying. So with that final false confession, she was charged on November 22nd, 2010 of conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree murder and attempted murder. Daniel Wong, Eric Carty, David Mulvaginum and Lenford Homeboy Crawford were all brought up on the same charges days later. Eric Carty initially claimed that he wasn't as involved in the crime as his cohorts. He said that he was merely the getaway driver and had nothing to do with the planning or the execution of Big Pan. However, it was found out that he had actually recruited the two other men for Daniel Wong for this crime, and he was partial to a bit of violence as he was up for the murder of his friend Kirk Matthews at that time. Unfortunately, Eric's lawyer came down with a serious illness, which meant a delay in his proceedings, which actually worked in his favour. He was the only one to accept a plea deal, and he received a maximum of 18 years in prison. The others were also found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole until they had served their full sentence. Jennifer Pan argued throughout the trial that she had been subjected to severe emotional abuse and abnormal parental pressure, and that she had also called off the hit at the last minute. Her friends took the stand and seemed to push the narrative that Han was a controlling monster. The Crown retaliated that Felix Pan had had the exact same upbringing as his sister, and he turned out to be a well-rounded young man, although he was now destroyed by the selfish actions of his own sibling. Who was Jennifer Pan? Was she an innocent victim of emotional abuse, or was she a pathological liar and killer? On the 13th of December 2014, all four accused were found guilty, and the 27-year-old girl who had never had a drink or been to a party was locked up behind bars. According to court reporters, however, they were lucky to get a conviction at all. Jurors became increasingly difficult to handle, with some acting downright strange. Despite strict rules against this in the court of law, 2 of the male jurors, we'll call them juror 4 and 3, began conversing out with the courtroom. They were having family barbecues, they were carpooling to court and discussing the case with their significant others. One of their significant others, Juror 4's wife, became so enthralled with the case that she would turn up every single day to court and lie to people involved in the case that she was just someone who merely had an interest. She would speak to Jennifer Pan's defense attorney and try and get insider information, which she would then go outside and share with the other jurors whilst they had their cigarette break. When this was discovered, the judge barred her from his courtroom. But she couldn't stay away. She would don disguises and sneak herself back into the courtroom.
Mrs. Iglesias.
Her husband and his bestie, juror number 3, continued their strange behaviour, however, often accosting a buxom blonde reporter in the car park of the court. The 2 men, /chauvinists, even complained to a court officer saying that the busty blonde reporter, who was just doing her job, was distracting them from the facts of the case.
Is that a little pig?
But it wasn't just them who were misbehaving. Allegedly, the jurors would take extra long lunches and they would all go out as a group to Arby's and Denny's. They would actually call the bailiff and say, "We're not going to be back right now. We're still having lunch. We'll be back in 10 minutes. So I think the fact that this didn't end up in a mistrial altogether is a Christmas miracle in itself. The real victims in this case were those who loved and lost Big Pan though. Han Pan, having been physically and emotionally scarred that evening, said that he is unable to do certain things because of his severe facial injury. I mean, let's remember, the man was shot in the face. So he is unable to work anymore. Even things that used to bring him joy, such as gardening, he doesn't even have the motor functions to do that anymore. He said in his victim impact statement that was read aloud to the courtroom that he himself feels like he died alongside his wife on that cold November evening in 2010. Felix Pan has done his best to distance himself from the notoriety of this case, severing ties not only with his disgraced sister but also with his father too. He is reluctant to even give his new employers his previous home address out of the fear that they will Google it and find out about the horrific family murder. One does have to wonder, does the disintegration of his relationship with his father have anything to do with the claims that Jennifer made that he was an abuser and that A+ was just never good enough? Or is it simply someone who's trying to move on from the trauma of that evening? Does this so-called tiger parenting produce overachievers who are destined for greatness? Or does it produce resentful children who are willing to kill for their own freedom? Parricide, the act of killing one's parents, is rare and varies in reasons. So maybe we will never understand why children turn on their own flesh and blood. But as you kiss your little ones goodnight this evening, don't tuck them in too tight, as you may pay for it later on. I hope you liked this week's episode. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. For me, it really helps my wee channel. If you're new here and you didn't mind listening to this Bailey Sarian wannabe, according to one commenter last week, I'm not crying, you are? Then please hit that subscribe button and I'll be here for you each week. If you would like to follow me, not in a creepy stalker way, on Instagram, it's at Megan True Crime. I also have a Twitter because I'm 1500 years old, at Megan True Crime. So my wee gremlins, I love you all. Be safe and remember to lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, and also don't lie to your parents, okay? They know everything. They're like the wee boy from the Sixth Sense, okay? They see it all. See ya! Not sure what that hair flip was, but I'm living. Love you, bye.